Welcome on into the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and it is time for a video. We're going to be looking at 5 unique prospects and where are their best landing spots. I've gone through some of the prospects at this point. I've begun developing my list and started watching players, and I'm like, I don't know, 20% through the scouting process here. A lot of ways to go, but as I started doing this, there were a couple of players who will go through at the end of this video, the final 2, that I really felt strong about, like a destination, a best fit for them. And just yesterday, I was thinking about trying to think of some other guys, and was like, hey, why don't I create a video? I'll come up with 5 of them. So that is what we're doing. We're going to look at where I think the best destination is. I'm going to give you a couple of other destinations as well that I think are good fits. And let's just start out here with running back Damian Martinez. This is, of course, coming into the 2025 NFL Draft prospects here. Hopefully all of these guys will end up being in it. We have a pretty good idea, but some people may still decide to go back to school or not. So Damian Martinez of Miami, Florida, 6 foot, 232 pounds. He's a good-sized prospect. I think a great fit for him is going to be Cleveland. This is sort of a square peg going into a square hole kind of fit. Sort of maybe an obvious fit for a couple of reasons, which will make sense very soon here. He is Nick Chubb in Saquon Barkley's body. He is a short Derrick Henry. These aren't necessarily comps, but just to give you an idea of the type of player that we're thinking of here. He is when I watched his tape, it's what I wanted to see from Braylon Allen's tape last season. He is very physical. He's a physically imposing player. I think so far out of the draftees, he is the most, in terms of a combination of play style and just their actual physical size, he's the most physically imposing running back that I've come across so far in this draft. Haven't gotten to all of them yet, but 2/3 of the way there, he's definitely up there on that list. And if it's not clear by now, given the fact that I called him a short Derrick Henry, said that he's Nick Chubb in Saquon Barkley's body instead of saying that he's Saquon Barkley, is the fact that he excels at rushing the ball. He does not necessarily excel at the other aspects in the passing game, the 3-down back type of stuff that you would like to see as a pass protector, as a receiver. But I will say, yeah, physically, he should be able to pass protect. It's going to be the mental thing, and can we get there with that and diagnosing where he's going to be needed in pass protection. The other thing, I think I saw some signs as a receiver that are nice, and that goes hand in hand with the kicker here, is that he's surprisingly light on his feet. Now, I never expect him to be, Derrick Henry. He can be good as a receiver, but he's just not a guy who you're throwing the ball to 60 times a year or anything like that. So that's kind of where we're at with Damian Martinez. I don't really expect him to get to that point as a receiver, but behind the line of scrimmage, sometimes you see this extra springiness to his step for a guy his size. It's just a nice little addition to his game, and I think it shows that he's got maybe a little more juice than some others. That's going to come back with one of these 3 teams here. We'll talk about that juice in terms of the fit. So, starting off here with the Los Angeles Chargers. These are 3 other best fits that I have outside of the Cleveland Browns. Jim Harbaugh, the head coach for the Los Angeles Chargers, loves to have physical teams that dominate along the trenches. He loves to wear down teams with the run game, just being the more physical unit on both sides of the ball. So I think that Damian Martinez is the type of running back that could definitely help you to do that, and would be a nice pairing with a J.K. Dobbins to help take some of the workload off of J.K. Dobbins as well. Then we've got the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think the fit here is that, they need a running back, but also that he could bring the physicality that Pittsburgh was hoping and oftentimes did get from Najee Harris, but even, maybe a little bit more in terms of that extra step. That juice, as I said, would come back here. I think the hope in taking Damian Martinez, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, would just be that you're going to get Najee Harris at the floor, but hopefully you'll also just get a little bit more. Najee Harris never really gave Pittsburgh more. He's fine. He's good running back, but just never quite reached the heights that they had hoped when they drafted him. And then the Jacksonville Jaguars need help at running back position as well. And Trevor Lawrence, he's a good fit for Damian Martinez because he doesn't really ever target his running backs, not a whole lot. So we take one of the weaker aspects of Damian Martinez's game and we say, hey, don't worry anyways, because the quarterback's not going to throw it your way too often. So we're good there, not a big deal, and bring some good value there. So that's, I like Damian Martinez. He's a big back. I suggest you go check his stuff out. I'm a pretty big fan at this point, maybe compared to consensus of his. That's going to bring us on to prospect number 2 in tight end, Harold Fannin Jr. of Bowling Green. He is 6'4", 230 pounds, and I think that a great fit for him would be the Denver Broncos. That is, of course, if they don't get one of the top 2 tight ends in the class, but and I think there are reasons why they might not end up getting one of those guys. But I think that Harold Fannin Jr. would be a great fit here for several reasons in Denver. First of all, looking at the Sean Payton aspect of this, he loves to create matchup mismatches all around the board. And we've definitely seen him do that a lot with tight ends in the past. He has a history of great tight end play in his offenses. He's been involved in the careers of Jimmy Graham, Jason Witten, and Jeremy Shockey, to give you an idea of some careers that he's helped to get the most out of and or even push forward into the limelight. Sean Payton has this wonderful thing called the Joker role in his offenses. It's basically like an H-back type of role. It's just it's a tight end who's versatile is what you need. Think of what Taysom Hill has done in that offense. Just a versatile type of role. And when we look at Harold Fannin Jr., we note down here on the third note that it is an excellent H-back skill set that he brings to the table at 6'4", 230 pounds. Not the tallest, biggest tight end of all tight ends, but he's an excellent receiver. You can see that in those numbers. We'll get to those numbers in a moment. But also on top of that, he's a top-notch run blocker. And you can run him out of the backfield, which is part of that H-back. You can bring him in tight. You can put him out wide. He can really line up most anywhere and bring some sort of skill set that should be able to help the team. And when we look at his receiving upside, which is, the big story here for Harold Fannin Jr., in terms of receptions and receiving yards, he set single-season records in 2024. 1,555 receiving yards is the most ever by a tight end in a single season in college football, which also means that he had the most single-season receiving yards per game at 119.615. For receptions, he had 117 receptions, the most ever by a tight end in a single season in college football, and that brought him to 9 receptions on average per game, which is also the most ever by a tight end in a single season in all of college football. Those are some long-standing records that this dude broke, and with that, he had a 96.8 receiving grade. I don't know that I've seen too many grades, if any, that were higher than that. That is an insane PFF, by the way, receiving grade for Harold Fannin Jr. that, I think to some extent should be able to be translated to the next level. And who better than Sean Payton to help that happen. But hey, there are some other opportunities. Obviously, Sean Payton's not the only one who could take advantage of this. Kansas City has been the spot for the last few years where every time the top tight end, we're saying, hey, Kansas City, as, of course, Travis Kelce gets a little bit older, ages, we're expecting them to, take the predecessor to Travis Kelce. Hey, maybe they already have that on the team. Maybe what I kind of feel like is that Rashee Rice essentially covers up that role, the zone beater kind of guy. So I think that they know that they really can't ever replace Travis Kelce. But, could you guys imagine if Patrick Mahomes had a weapon at the tight end position and how deadly that could be? Yeah, it's still something, whether it's the same exact thing as Travis Kelce gave you, that Kansas City could be looking for a little more juice going into the future at this tight end position. Right about now would be probably a good time to try to draft that if they don't think they have it in-house, which in terms of juice, I think Harold Fannin Jr. gives them that. And they also do like to call creative plays, a little versatility for Harold Fannin Jr. It definitely would not be something that would cause Kansas City to to not want him. That's bring us on to the Washington Commanders. They invested in Ben Sinnott last year, tight end, a tight end that I really liked in the draft, and I still do like him a lot. But there's nothing wrong with bringing in some extra competition in order to help fill the void that inevitably will be there when you no longer have Zach Ertz, or when Zach Ertz is too old. We need... Jaden Daniels liked that tight end position. Maybe as he gets older, he relies on the tight end a little bit less. But also, the Cliff Kingsbury offense, if Cliff Kingsbury remains with the team, really utilizes the tight end position. Ben Sinnott and Harold Fannin Jr. would be a great duo of competition that hopefully between the two of them you get at least one really good tight end for Jaden Daniels and his career. They can grow up together and be great together. And then you got the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence, we talked about the running back not targeting running backs so much. He does target tight ends quite a bit. Of course, some of that has to do with the players that you have, the coaching, all that is ever changing. But Trevor Lawrence does tend to like his tight ends quite a bit, and you look at some of the other weapons that they currently have at the receiving group, and that does help to make things a little bit easier for the tight end position. And of course, Evan Ingram aging, could be on his way out, possibility too. So all teams that I think could definitely benefit from Harold Fannin Jr. for one reason or another. Let's move on to this next prospect number 3, but there's really no rhyme or reason to the order here. So, safety Malachi Starks of Georgia, 6'1", 205 pounds. Somebody who's on a bit of a down year, but could still definitely go in the first round, and if so, the Miami Dolphins are in that spot that you're seeing. This is not unique to me. I'm not the first one to say, and the reason behind why I think Malachi Starks fits with Dolphins isn't unique either. However, I will say the first time I did a mock draft, I found this match pretty quickly. It didn't take too long to find out, and I had not seen anybody else do it yet. Now I realize that it is very much the general consensus thought here from Malachi Starks is that we're just going to jump the gun here. He's very reminiscent of a Jalen Ramsey type of player. He's built in that kind of mold. Malachi Starks is ultra versatile. He can play down in the box, kind of like as your extra linebacker down there to help in the run game. He can play deep, make sure nothing happens over the top. He can play in the nickel, get physical, or not with the nickel, but he can come down there and play with those guys. He's got that kind of shiftiness to his game, and you can even throw him out on the boundary, and he will survive as a boundary cornerback. So he is ultimately a defensive back, more so than he's even a safety or a cornerback, but most likely you see a lot of his stuff, especially early career here, probably come from a safety or more safety positions there rather than out on the boundary. But that doesn't mean that that's not a skill set that a team might say, hey, we really like that about him. In case of injuries or whatnot, we can move him around. But I think what the fun is of this fit is the Jalen Ramsey aspect of it, because Jalen Ramsey is on the Dolphins, and so who better to learn from than Jalen Ramsey, than some of this coaching staff that we'll see. The coaching staff is going to be a part of the reason for some of the other landing spots that I have for Malachi Starks, and coaching staff that's had Jalen Ramsey at multiple teams and utilized him to very effective reasoning. Having a guy like that on the team who can learn from someone who has some similar assets, who's one of the best in the game. I mean, obviously, that could really jumpstart Malachi Stark's career, get him moving all the faster, and help him arrive to a ceiling all the easier. So, other teams where I think there's a good fit for Malachi Starks, you can see the Baltimore Ravens, Washington, Atlanta. We're going to go Washington first here, the Dan Quinn defense. He has utilized 3 safeties many times and with multiple teams in the past, most recently a lot with Dallas last 2 years ago now. And the Washington Commanders, could lose Jeremy Chin in free agency, making this a glaring need for the team if that were to happen. But even if they retain the talents of Jeremy Chin, who had a great year for them, their slot corner Noah Igbenogany, I'm so sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly, I've only heard it and never had to say it up until now, is in need of being upgraded. He's in year 4, or maybe 5, but I think it's year 4 of his career, and it was not a good year. Starks and Mike Sanistrill also, I think could be a fun duel. Mike Sandstrom, their draft pick last year, a guy who they've used out on the boundary, but who might be best utilized in at the slot or as a the nickelback position, covering the slot receivers. It could be his best spot as they fill out that cornerback room. Whatever, it gives him some versatility that he did held up fairly well as a rookie cornerback out on the boundary this last year. But I just think Malachi Starks, him, whatever other pieces you might bring in, could be really, really fun between the interaction between Malachi Starks and Mikey Sandstrom. Malachi Starks, a little bit bigger of a guy, so you bring him down into the nickel based on the matchup. You're about a bigger slot guy. You're going up against Keenan Allen. All right, let's put Malachi Starks down there, and let's move let's move Mike Sandstrom out onto the boundary. In games where you're going to be playing up against maybe the Ladd McConkeys of the world, let's get Mike Sandstrom out there on him, and we can move Malachi Starks up into the safety somewhere else in that defense based on matchups, game plan. So I think that offers a lot of versatility, and of course with injuries too, the two of them could fill up basically every role in that defense between the two of them whenever somebody goes down. So I think that just really offers you, allows you to go maybe a little bit thin at the position and load up at other positions of need. That's going to bring us on to the Baltimore Ravens, and if they don't re-sign Ardarius Washington and Malachi Starks were to fall, which I do think is a possibility coming off of a much worse 2024 than 2023, I think the NFL Combine is going to have a lot of say in exactly where Malachi Starks ends up falling in the draft, depending on how well he does or does not meet expectations there. But this defense could maximize Starks' effectiveness. It's a defense that runs multiples, meaning that they're doing all sorts of different things in their game plans each and every single week. And so versatility is really key. We saw that a lot with Kyle Hamilton this year and his ability to go fill up a different role when something else wasn't working for the team as a whole. But just in general, all the more versatility in this defense helps, and Malachi Starks brings that. So he would be a great fit in Baltimore for that reason, once again, especially if they don't re-sign Ardarius Washington. And then, which I assume they probably will. Atlanta Falcons head coach Raheem Morris coached Jalen Ramsey in 2020 and 2021, so there's the connection there to this type of skill set, and he helped to cement Ramsey as one of the best defensive backs in the league at the time, and he's still one of the best. He could use a Ramsey clone on this defense in Atlanta, give him a little bit of versatility to work with. That defensive back room definitely, as a whole, not very good yet. So he's one of those pieces that you can bring in, work around over the coming years as you build up that unit. And once again, a history of working with this kind of player and getting the most out of them. So that's going to bring us on to the final two prospects. Going to start off with wide receiver Savion Williams of TCU, 6'5", 225 pounds. As a reminder, these measurements are not official yet. We'll get those in the coming weeks as they go through Pro Bowls and all of those fun off-season things where we get those official measurements from. But for these final two, these are the two I talked about in the beginning of the video that when I was watching the video, the tape on them, immediately I'm like, oh, this is a fit. This is a fit for this offense. So I want to see if you can't guess the fit. And I'm going to give you 3 clues, one at a time, and I want you to try to guess. Let me know in the comments if you have a guess. Let me know, was that guess after the first clue, after 2 clues, whatever the case. And if you got it right, or maybe it was a different team. And obviously for all of these guys, I am definitely interested in hearing your thoughts about the fits, your thoughts about other fits, your thoughts about the team, that team doesn't have that need, whatever. Let me know all of what you're thinking in those things. Some of you, you know your teams better than I do. I've done my best to learn the needs of those teams, but that doesn't mean I always get it right. Heck, I noticed I had an error for the Green Bay Packers, which is my own team in my needs list that I had to fix just this morning. So it happens. Clue number 1 here for Savion Williams is that he is ultra versatile. He can play special teams and help there. He can pitch in at quarterback. He's got some high school experience there. He is a wide receiver, of course, and he can line up in the backfield as a running back, do all of those things. In addition to that, he's also a great blocker. So there's really nowhere that you can't put a man this size who has this much athleticism and versatility on the offense, outside of the offensive line. Don't put him into the Zeke Elliott center type of role, and you should be okay. you should be able to get something out of him elsewhere. Let's bring us on to clue number 2, and that is the fact that think of teams who like freaks, athletics. They like their guys who, whether it just be at the wide receiver position or in general, they tend to hire or scout guys and draft guys who do really well at the NFL Combine, that kind of thing. He is 47th on Bruce Feldman's Freaks list, by the way, for specifics. And clue number 3 is that this is a big clue, he's an Arthur Smith-esque prospect. I'm going to give you a moment to let this all sink in. What team loves their freak wide receivers, maybe doesn't typically get them in the first round? And in terms of the versatility, the Arthur Smith-ness of this all would be a fit. It is the Pittsburgh Steelers, of course, where Arthur Smith currently is the offensive coordinator. That could change. He could get the job in Chicago. I know he's interviewed for that one at least. But yes, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think, would be a wonderful fit for Savion Williams. They have a bit of a need at wide receiver, as well as the Arthur Smith of this all could really get the best out of Savion Williams, especially as he develops and becomes a better receiver. You can utilize him in these other ways and get something from him. Now, this next little bit about Savion Williams, I'm lifting and slightly altering, so not quite quoting from the NFL Stock Exchange. As far as I know, I'm not quoting them exactly. Basically, what I got from them was he's either the love child of DK Metcalf and Cordero Patterson, or that's the good comp, or he's the love child of Chase Claypool and Laviska Shenault. That would be the bad side of that comp, of course. Chase Claypool, he's somebody who the Pittsburgh Steelers took in the past. And Cordell Patterson, somebody who's currently on the team. 6'5" Deebo Samuel, is that what he is? Obviously, that would make him not quite Deebo Samuel and something different, but nonetheless, you get the idea here of what Savion Williams is, and I really think that Pittsburgh would be a great destination, and I think they're a team that could value him at the highest and end up drafting him. Would make a lot of sense. What do you think on that one? Let's get on to the next one here with R.J. Harvey. He's a running back from the University of Central Florida, 5'9", 208 pounds. Can you guess the fit based on these clues? Clue number 1. He's not a bell cow. And the reason I'm bringing this up is to kind of just hint you in on the team here. It's not a team necessarily that's at the most need of a running back, but yet could use possibly an upgrade to what they currently have. Could just use some more versatility in that running back room possibly, or just take a shot on another guy in that running back room who might be able to help them. And specifically, why you take a shot on this guy for this team has to do with the head coach, the offense, what they like from their running backs, etc. So Harvey was a team captain at UCF in his senior season. He has leadership qualities. The head coach of this NFL team is one of those head coaches that definitely emphasizes liking the team captain, good football players types of guys. Now, I'm not necessarily saying good people. I'm saying good football players with team captainship. And that's a big, big clue if you think about this. I'm not saying that this head coach has the highest of ethics, that they must have guys who are just good people on their team. That's not the point. The point is that he really respects leaders amongst men, that kind of thing. And that's going to bring us on to clue 3, which is the fact that this guy is a versatile weapon at the running back position. He played quarterback in high school, and in over 3 years in college at UCF, he was the quarterback on several reps from the Wildcat formation, of course. So he brings some versatility to the offense. Think of what teams might use a player at the Wildcat from time to time in the past and the present based on a move that this coach has made. I'm really giving you some strong clues to get this one. He had 6 dropbacks in the 3 years there out of the Wildcat formation. Out of those dropbacks, he went 3 of 4 for 83 yards and a touchdown. Additionally, he ran several touchdowns from the Wildcat formation as well. More often, they ran the Wildcat near the end zone, and more often than not, they ran it. But of course, every now and then, he would drop back and pass it. And one time, he dropped back and passed it for a good play, a big, deep play for a big touchdown. Now, have you figured out the team yet? It is, of course, the Denver Broncos. I was referring to Sean Payton a couple of times there. I think that R.J. Harvey, if viewed by this team, it could be viewed as a different version of Taysom Hill. Not exactly Taysom Hill, but somebody who could bring you some of those Taysom Hill plays to the table. You can put him in at essentially the Wildcat and use him in some trickery, some trick plays, mess with the defenses a little bit, get Bo Nix out of there because, I don't know, you just like to pull your quarterback off the field sometimes. There you go. That is going to be it for this video. Thank you very, very much for tuning on in. Down in the description, there should be a link to the Discord channel that should be accessible. Let me know. If not, if you need a password to still get into it, then I still need to change some settings there for the Discord channel. But the idea is I want to provide you with access on Discord to some of my off-season here NFL draft stuff, my grading, my strengths, weaknesses, analysis, notes on the players, and everything will be going up there in the next, within like the next month or so. I will get them all up there. So at that point in time, then you would have access to that if you're on the Discord. So just kind of getting that news out there right now for the first time, but it's still not, there's nothing new out there right now for you. So thank you very, very much once again. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you did. And take care. I'll see you soon.